recording. So we're going to learn how to add an image into P5. And we can add lots of different types of media. So we're going to also talk about how to add sound into P5 later in the semester. But for now, we're just going to look at images. So you can load an image into memory and then display it on the canvas. This is actually different than loading an image in HTML, which is something that you probably covered in MMP 100 at some point. This is not embedding the image into HTML. This is actually reading the data from the image and storing it in memory and then redrawing it on the canvas like we're drawing our shapes and stuff like that. So we have a little bit more control. We can easily resize and move the image around the canvas. We can filter the pixels and add blending effects and things like that. But we're going to start off simple. So this is the image function, and it just takes an image. It's pretty easy. We have to do one thing that we haven't done before, which is preload the data from the image. And this is a good thing to do with any basic program because we want to make sure that that data is available before we try to draw it, so we don't have any errors or anything like that. So we're gonna load the image first, and then you just draw the image. It's kind of like the text function in that the function itself is just image, and then the first argument is the data that we're using. With the text yesterday or on Monday, we used the string, but today we just use the variable that we loaded the image into. And then you have the X and Y position of the image. And just like the text, there's an optional width and height. So we set the image that we want to show, the position of the image, and then we have an option for setting the width of the image as well as the height of the image. So I'm going to download an image for this. You could actually just use a link to an image that's already online, but I want to go over using the file system as a way to kind of demonstrate that as well. So I'm going to go over to P5. I'm going to add this to my 210 collection before I forget. And I'm going to go to a new project. And so we'll call this image example. And so this isn't like the most efficient way to make a meme, but I think one of the things hopefully you'll start to realize with programming is that you have a lot more control over how your program works than you do when you're using something like Photoshop. So if making a meme sort of seems ridiculous because we could just open Photoshop and throw stuff in there and it'd be really easy, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do in P5 that we wouldn't be able to do in Photoshop. So today we're just doing the basics, but next week we'll start to add some more interesting stuff. Anyway, this is the image example. Let's put the date in here. And I'll say by Owen Roberts. And then what we're also going to include in here is some citation information for the image that we're going to use. So you can take a photo on your phone and use that, but I'm going to source an image from the internet. So I'm going to open a new tab and go to Google Images. And let's find an image of a cat. And so we get a lot of nice options here. But what we want to do, even though we're doing student projects and we probably won't get sued, it's still a good idea to learn about the rules about what types of images you can use in your projects and what you can't. So you probably talked about this a little bit in MMP 100 at some point, but if you want to take media from the internet and remix it or use it in a project that you are working on, it's a good thing to be aware of the rules around that. So it's obviously very easy with digital media for me to copy and download any one of these images and just throw it wherever I want to. But I'm not really allowed to do that. So if I make a project and then I distribute it or I try to sell it or something like that, and somebody owns the rights to an image that I'm using, or a video or some audio or something like that, I could get in trouble for that. So what we want to do here in Google Images, they have a tools button here, and I can go to usage rights and I can just say Creative Commons licenses. So this makes it a little bit easier. This just filters out all the images that don't have some type of Creative Commons license, and then I can just see images that I might want to use. So there's some good examples here. I kind of like this one is pretty funny. Good one for a meme. And so I'm going to go here. And normally when you see a Creative Commons image, you'll be able to find some specific license information somewhere on the website. And so it's all the way down here. Actually, this says this is work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivative Works 3.0 license, which is actually quite a restrictive license for a Creative Commons license. Basically, it says I'm allowed to redistribute this material, but I have to give attribution to the author. So that's fine. That's easy to do. The second condition is that it has to be non-commercial. So I can't sell something or profit from something that I make using this image. And then it says if I remix, transform, or build upon the material, I may not redistribute the modified material. So that's actually means that I can't really like distribute something if I remix it like this. Um, I'm going to ignore that for now because I'm just making a demo, so I don't think I'm going to get in trouble for it. But if you were going to make some type of, commercial project or like a something that you were trying to promote, you probably would want to avoid this license. There's a lot of other licenses on here that most of the Creative Commons stuff is a little bit less restrictive. Um, let's see if we can see the list of licenses. You would think that they would have like a big button that says, here's our list of licenses. This is like a help section to create a license. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead with this. So it says I can download here, and then I have options for different sizes. I'll probably go with medium. That looks good. If I click on the main download, that's image is going to be too large. So I'm going to go with the medium one. It's sometimes when you click on it, it'll just download into your downloads folder. This is opening in a new tab. And so if it's open in a new tab, I could actually just copy and paste this URL and just load that directly into P5. But what I want to do is download it and then upload it to my P5 project. That way, if this creator ever decides to delete the image for some reason, then my image will still work in my project. If they deleted it and I just used a URL, then obviously that URL would just break. So you don't have to do it, but that's what I tend to do to kind of future-proof my project. So I'm going to hit Command S to save this into my downloads folder. I'll call this cat. And there we go. It's downloaded. This one is actually kind of small. It's 400 by 267. So the medium is like really small. How big was the other one is really large. It's weird that there's no kind of like in between. I could Photoshop this, but I'm just going to stick with the smaller one. So that's in my downloads folder. And so now I can go back to the editor. And what I'm going to do first is just put a link to this and then put a little bit of citation information. So, that way, since it does say attribution, if for whatever reason the person who created this found it, I would at least be giving them attribution. So I could just say cat uh, by Marie Anna Lee. And that's basically all it's saying is that if you use this thing, you have to cite who created it. And so I have a link to that project. So that's a good thing that's a pretty basic way just to kind of cover your bases for sourcing an image. Okay, so I've got my image and I've got the citation information. Now I want to upload it. So if I'm going to upload media to my P5 project, I can use the file editor. I can just click on this little arrow button over here next to sketch.js, and that opens up my file browser over here. The default files are just my index page, my script, and my CSS page. And if I want to upload a new file, I can click on this little drop down and click upload file. I could also make folders and stuff like that if I want to organize, but I've only got one image, so I'm just going to do that. And then it says I can drag and drop, or I can click to open my file browser. So I'm going to click on here, go to downloads, open up cat.jpg, and that's going to upload. And so now I have it in the P5 cloud server, and I can load it into my project. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go over the code for that real quick. So first of all, I need a variable to load the image into. And this step is pretty important because basically I want to load all this data, but I only want to do it once. I don't want to have to like reload it, but I need to do that in a separate function. And so I need a variable that's global to save the data into that I can use later in my draw function. So I'm going to start with a variable. I'm going to call this cat image. And I'm not going to assign anything to it. I'm just declaring the variable so the program knows it exists. So then I can load some data into it and then use it later. So now I'm going to say function preload. And the preload function is actually going to go before the setup function. So if you don't have a preload function, it just goes straight to setup. But if you have a preload function, P5 does everything that you want it to do in the preload function, and then it goes to setup once it's done loading. So all I'm going to do is load the image. It's pretty easy. I just say cat image equals load image, and then the URL for the cat image. So since it's on the server, I can just write in directly the name of the cat image. If I had folders and stuff like that, I would have to add that into the path as well. But I don't, so I can just go ahead and write cat.jpg here. And of course, I have to match the file extension. This is using .jpeg, so I have to make sure to use the same exact file extension here. So if it was like .png or just .jpg, I would have to do that. So last bit, now I just want to draw the image. So I'm going to just write the image function. I'm going to take this variable that I loaded my image data into. So I'll say cat image here. And for now, to start, I'm just going to draw it at 0, 0. So it'll just draw up in the top left corner. Okay, so there's my cat image. Um, it's actually 400 pixels, so it's pretty much exactly the size that I want. So that's pretty much all we have to do. We've loaded an image and now we can see it. There's some other stuff that we can do with the image, but that's basically, the basic idea. We can also draw it more than once. So I could put another image here and say cat image again, and then put it like down here. And so I can draw it actually as many times as I want to. Obviously, the more you draw it, the more processor power it's going to take, but just drawing it twice is pretty easy. So I can draw that as many times as I want to. I can also load multiple images. So if I want to load another image, and this is something that comes up a lot, so I'm just going to do a quick example of this. So let's say I wanted to get a dog image to add into here. Let's see. Let's find a funny dog image. Hmm, let's see. Oh, I have to reset the tools because Google doesn't do that for me. Okay, so we reset the tools. We've got some Creative Commons dogs here. Let's go with this one. This one's pretty funny. It's a little scary, actually. Let's go with something a little more neutral. Uh, that one's good. Sad dog. That's nice. Okay, so I'm just going to click on here, and I'm going to go with the free download. Um, I actually wish there was a smaller version of this, but that's okay. So I'm going to go to the free download and then save this image. And so it's sad dog. I'm going to click save. Okay. And so I'm just going to grab the link for this, and let's see. This is CC0, so that means there's no restrictions at all. So this Creative Commons 0, I can do whatever I want with this. I don't even have to give credit, but usually I will just to be nice. Okay, so this is Sad Dog by George Hoden. So let's go back here and put Sad Dog by George Hoden. There's a link, and I'm just going to upload this real quick. So I'm going to go to File, Upload File, and open this sad dog image. And this one is really quite large, so I'm going to have to scale this down. And I would probably, if I was doing this for like a real project, I would probably open up Photoshop and scale it down myself, but I can use code to do it. So anyway, we're ready for adding our dog image. So I do need a new variable for this one. So I need to add a new variable, but I don't need to like repeat the preload function. I can just add a new line inside the preload function. So I can say dog image equals load image. And this one is called sad-dog.jpg. So I don't need more than one preload function. You're never going to make more than one of the same function. I just need to add more code inside of here. Okay, so now let's draw our dog image. And this one's going to be way bigger, so it's going to cover up the cat image. And it's like way, way, way too big. So let's make it smaller. So one thing I can do is I can add an optional width. So let's make the width 400, the size of the canvas. And then we're going to have to figure out the right size for the height. If I make it 400, it actually doesn't look that bad, but the original image data is wider than it is tall, so it's a little bit distorted. If I made it like 800, you'd really see it's like getting stretched out. So with 400 by 400, it's only stretched out a little bit, but it is a little bit stretched out. So if I do like 400 by 300, that's closer to what the original one looks like. And then let's move it down a little bit. I'll move it down to 300 and I'll make my canvas a little bigger. Okay, so now I have my two animals. I can put some text over them to make a meme if I want to. That's a little bit higher than I really need. Let's do 700. Maybe 650. Okay. So I'm going to go over just a couple more things before we add in our meme text. So I'm going to go back to my image notes for a second. We've kind of talked about all this stuff. Oh, this is actually old stuff. I should delete that. Okay, so as I mentioned, we can interact with the image. We probably don't need to do this quite yet, but just as an example, if I want to move my cat image around, I can say mouse X, mouse Y for the position. And now you can see the image is actually going to move with the mouse. Of course, it's restricted within the canvas. And you can see that the image is drawn from the top left. So if you wanted to change that, you could change that by saying image mode center, sort of like our rect mode from a few weeks ago. And now you can see the image is centered around the mouse and the dog image has moved over. So you can center your image around as well. That might make it easier to design your project. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to turn that off. And then we can also, let's say we leave this cat image at 0, 0. I can also change the width and height of the image interactively. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate that with mouse X, mouse Y as the width and height. And so now you can see as I move the mouse, I'm actually stretching out the image as well. So that might be useful. We're going to talk about more interactivity and animation stuff next week. So I'm not going to spend too much time right now with this, but just to point out that the image can be resized and moved in real time. So let's go back to how we had it before. Okay, so another thing you can do is change the color of an image. So for example, if I want the sad, maybe I want the sad dog image to look blue, I could say tint and put 0, 0 and maybe like 200 for blue. And that's going to add a tint to the whole thing. I need to undo it, so I can go back up here and say tint 0, 0, 0. Oops, no, I have to do, whoops, the other way around, 255, 255, 255. So that way the top image is, fully has the full color range. So down here, when I say tint 00200, basically it's just taking out all the colors that aren't blue because I didn't give any values for blue, for red or green. If I put like a little bit of red, or let's put a little bit more, now it's like a little purplish. If I give it like a little bit of green, now it's just a little bit blue. It's not completely blue. So you can play around with the tint. That one starts to, make the processor run a little bit slow, but it is an option if you want to update the colors in the image. You can use that tint function. It's sort of like the fill function, but for the image. And you can also add transparency. I don't think we really need that here, but you can add another component to make it transparent. I guess I could put the dog image back up here and tint it transparent. Oops. So you could blend the images together that way. It's a little confusing, so I'm going to undo that for now, but that is an option. Okay. I think I hear somebody sneezing. Um, okay. We can also get the color out of the pixels. Um, so there's not a lot of applications for this, but you can do some kind of cool stuff with this if we get the uh, color of a pixel. So I can say, I can really get the color anywhere in the canvas, but I can sample a color from where the mouse is and then draw something based on that. So I can say, um, what did I say in here? Did I just say C? Yeah, you can't use color. So I said C equals get, and then I'm just going to get wherever the mouse is and draw something based on that. So I'll say fill is C, and then draw an ellipse at mouse X, mouse Y, and let's make it like 40 pixels wide. And so you can see that color. Let's make it a little bit bigger, actually. Let's make it 80. That color is matching whatever color is directly below the mouse. So you can get kind of a cool effect. You can do different stuff with that, but that one's another one that's quite processor heavy. So if you try to do a lot of stuff with that, things will start to slow down. But you can get some kind of a cool effects with that. And right now we don't really know enough to do like a full image processing thing, but that's something that we could do a little bit later in the semester when we learn a couple more things. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the image. It's pretty easy just to add the image, and then you can kind of play with different factors of it. As far as making the meme, we just want to have some combination of text and image. So you can make a meme. You could also make a logo. You could really do whatever you want as long as there's that combination of stuff. So obviously, I have a couple images, and now I want to just add some text. So let's choose a good meme font. I'll use Comic Sans. And I'm going to increase the text size a little bit. And then I'll just draw some text. I'll say I'm a cat. Oh, whoops, I need to use different quotation marks. I'm a cat up at the top. And so let's see, if I want to put that at, actually, let's center everything. So let's say text align center. So I'll say I'm a cat, and I'll put it in the middle of the canvas. So that's like 200 and like down at the bottom here. Okay, so we have I'm a cat. Let's move it up a little bit. And then I'm going to use the same settings, but I'm just going to move down here and I'm going to say I'm a sad dog. And we'll move this down a little bit. Okay, and I could choose a different fill for the text, or maybe I'll put an outline on it. So I'll do a stroke and do a stroke weight. Let's do 2. Okay, that makes it a little bit more readable. I might do a little bit bigger. There we go. That's pretty good. So we have I'm a cat and I'm a sad dog. There's my meme. Obviously, you could play with that and do different things with it. It doesn't have to, as I mentioned, follow the meme format necessarily, but whatever you are inspired to create. Then obviously I'm going to want to save an image of this to put on the Open Lab. So I'm just going to review that real quick. So I'll say function mouse pressed and then save meme1.png. And so now when I click on it, it's going to download into my downloads folder. So let's see that. There's my meme. And so I can post that on the Open Lab with a link to my code. And that's it. That's my meme project. So that's going to be the rough draft of our meme. Next week, we will work on adding some interactivity, and then we'll also add some animation the week after that. So that's what we'll be working on for the next little bit. So that's everything for this week's assignment. So I'm going to stop the recording here.